World War II forced the United States to rapidly invent, refine, and deploy one of the most complex bomber forces in military history. In less than a decade, American aircraft design evolved from short-range, lightly armed bombers into massive long-range machines capable of reshaping entire theaters of war. These aircraft were not interchangeable. Each was built for a specific altitude, range, payload, and mission type: strategic, tactical, maritime, or experimental. Some became legends. Others were stopgaps, rushed into service to meet urgent needs. Together, they formed a complete bombing ecosystem that powered American air strategy from 1941 to 1945. As we go through every U.S. bomber used in World War II, consider this. Which design do you think mattered most? The most famous one, or the one that quietly carried the heaviest burden? Early and pre-war U.S. bombers, 1933-1941. Martin B-10. The Martin B-10 marked a revolutionary break from biplane bombers when it entered service in the mid-1930s. It was the first all-metal monoplane bomber used by the U.S. Army Air Corps, featuring an enclosed cockpit, retractable landing gear, and internal bomb bay, features that quickly became standard worldwide. At its introduction, the B-10 was faster than many contemporary fighter aircraft, demonstrating how bomber speed could temporarily substitute for defensive armament. However, by the time the United States entered World War II, rapid advances in fighter performance rendered the B-10 obsolete. Its importance lies less in combat use and more in how it reshaped American bomber design philosophy before the war began. Douglas B-18 Bolo. The Douglas B-18 Bolo was developed as a cost-conscious bomber during the late 1930s, derived from a civilian airliner design. While affordable and reliable, it lacked the speed, altitude performance, and defensive firepower needed for modern warfare. When war broke out, the B-18 was quickly relegated to secondary roles such as training, coastal patrol, and anti-submarine missions in the Atlantic. Despite its limitations, it filled a critical gap during a period when more advanced bombers were still entering production. The B-18's widespread use highlights how the U.S. relied on available aircraft to maintain readiness during the dangerous pre-war transition period. Douglas B-23. Dragon. The Douglas B-23. Dragon represented an attempt to improve upon the B-18's shortcomings without a full redesign. It introduced better engines, improved defensive armament, and a distinctive tailgun position, one of the first of its kind on an American bomber. Even with these upgrades, the B-23 was already outdated by the time it entered service, offering only marginal improvements in speed and payload. As a result, it never saw overseas combat and was primarily used for training and coastal defense. The B-23 illustrates how rapidly bomber technology was advancing on the eve of World War II, leaving incremental designs behind, almost immediately. Medium bombers, 1941-1945. North American B-25. Mitchell, the North American B-25. Mitchell became one of the most recognizable and flexible medium bombers of World War II. Designed to balance range, payload, and durability, it was capable of operating from relatively short airfields while still delivering meaningful bomb loads. The B-25 gained global attention during the 1942 Doolittle raid, when modified aircraft launched from an aircraft carrier to strike Japan, demonstrating both American reach and adaptability. Beyond that famous mission, the B-25 served extensively in every theater, performing level bombing, low-level strafing, and anti-shipping attacks. Its reliability and ease of maintenance made it a favorite among crews operating in remote and harsh environments. Martin B-26 Marauder. The Martin B-26. Marauder was a high-speed medium bomber that initially earned a dangerous reputation. Its small wings and high landing speeds led to a steep learning curve for inexperienced crews, resulting in early training accidents. However, Once proper procedures were developed, the B-26 proved to be one of the safest bombers of the war in combat terms. It was fast, heavily armed for its class, and capable of delivering accurate bomb loads against heavily defended targets. By the later stages of the war, the B-26 achieved one of the lowest loss rates of any Allied bomber, demonstrating how improved training and tactics could unlock the full potential of an advanced but demanding aircraft. Heavy bombers, European theater, 1941-1945. Boeing B-17. Flying Fortress, the Boeing B-17. Flying Fortress became the symbolic backbone of the U.S. strategic bombing campaign in Europe. Designed for high-altitude daylight bombing, it emphasized defensive firepower, rugged construction, and formation flying as its primary means of survival. Multiple .50 caliber machine guns covered nearly every approach angle, allowing tightly grouped B-17 formations to create overlapping fields of fire. Although early missions suffered heavy losses due to limited fighter escort, the B-17 proved capable of absorbing extraordinary battle damage and still returning crews safely. Its accuracy at altitude and mechanical reliability made it central to the U.S. Army Air Force's doctrine of precision daylight bombing against German industrial targets. Consolidated B-24 Liberator. The consolidated B-24 Liberator complemented the B-17 by offering greater range, higher top speed, and a larger bomb load. Its distinctive high aspect ratio wing allowed for long-distance missions, making it essential for reaching targets beyond the effective range of earlier bombers. However, the B-24 was less forgiving than the B-17 when damaged, with a structure that crews often considered more fragile in combat. Despite this, it was produced in greater numbers than any other American bomber and served across Europe, the Mediterranean, and the Atlantic. The Liberator's versatility and sheer production volume made it an indispensable part of the Allied bombing effort, even if it lacked the Flying Fortress's reputation for survivability. Heavy bombers, late war and Pacific focus, 1944-1945. Boeing B-29. Superfortress, the Boeing B-29. Superfortress represented a generational leap in bomber technology and was the most advanced aircraft to see combat during World War II. It introduced pressurized crew compartments, remote-controlled gun turrets, advanced fire control systems, and an unprecedented combination of range and payload. Designed specifically for the vast distances of the Pacific theater, the B-29 allowed the United States to strike the Japanese home islands from distant bases. Early operations were plagued by severe engine reliability issues, but once resolved, the aircraft became the backbone of the strategic bombing campaign against Japan. Its role culminated in both conventional firebombing missions and the atomic strikes that ultimately ended the war, cementing the B-29's place as a decisive strategic weapon. Consolidated B-32. Dominator, the consolidated B-32. Dominator was developed as a contingency aircraft in case the B-29 program failed. It shared a similar mission profile, but relied on more conventional systems, including manual gun turrets and non-pressurized crew areas. Delays and design changes meant the B-32 entered service very late in the war, limiting its operational impact. A small number of Dominators conducted combat missions in the Pacific after Japan's surrender, making them among the last American bombers to fly combat operations in World War II. Although overshadowed by the B-29, the B-32 reflects the urgency and redundancy built into U.S. wartime aircraft development. Maritime and patrol bombers, 1941-1945, consolidated PBY Catalina. The consolidated PBY Catalina was not designed as a conventional bomber, but it became one of the most important maritime strike and patrol aircraft of World War II. As a long-range flying boat and amphibious aircraft, it excelled at ocean surveillance, convoy escort, and anti-submarine warfare. Armed with depth charges and bombs, the Catalina played a critical role in closing the Atlantic air gap, where German U-boats had previously operated with relative freedom. Its long endurance allowed it to remain on station for extended periods, making it invaluable for search and rescue missions as well. While slow and lightly armed, the PBY's strategic impact far outweighed its modest performance. Consolidated PB-4Y1. Liberator, the PB-4Y1 was a naval adaptation of the Army Air Force's B-24 Liberator, modified specifically for long-range maritime patrol. Changes included specialized radar equipment, anti-submarine weapons, and crew accommodations suited for extended overwater missions. The PB-4Y1 gave the U.S. Navy a true long-range patrol bomber capable of hunting submarines far from friendly coastlines. Its speed and range allowed it to respond quickly to convoy threats, significantly reducing Allied shipping losses as the war progressed. This adaptation demonstrates how strategic bombers were repurposed to meet evolving naval warfare demands. Consolidated PB-4Y2. Privateer. The consolidated PB-4Y2. Privateer was a purpose-built maritime patrol bomber derived from the B-24's basic design but heavily modified for naval service. It featured a longer fuselage, a single vertical tail for improved stability, and enhanced defensive armament. Entering service late in the war, the privateer primarily operated in the Pacific, conducting anti-shipping and reconnaissance missions. Although its World War II service was limited, it represented the final evolution of piston-engine maritime bombers before the jet age. The privateer underscored the growing importance of long-range aerial surveillance in controlling vast ocean theaters. The complete U.S. bomber system in World War II. By the end of World War II, the United States had fielded the most diverse and technologically layered bomber force ever assembled up to that point. From pre-war transitional aircraft like the B-10 to highly specialized machines like the B-29 Superfortress, each bomber filled a precise role shaped by geography, enemy defenses, and industrial capacity. Light bombers handled low-level strikes and battlefield support. Medium bombers bridged tactical and strategic missions. Heavy bombers carried the burden of industrial destruction, and maritime bombers secured the oceans that made global war possible. No single aircraft won the air war alone. Victory came from how these bombers worked together as a system, adapting doctrine, improving training, and scaling production faster than any opponent. The true achievement of American bombing power in World War II was not just technological innovation, but the ability to deploy the right aircraft, in the right role, at the right moment, across every theater of the war.